What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. Also, 2020 Best Podcast News hosts, Best Podcast News, and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, once a month, I host the only live broadcast on air, on the digital air, that is for fathers and dads, which is sponsored by Dove Men Care, also co-sponsored by Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. But the reason why I'm here tonight is food. Food of the diaspora. Food. But even more so, the Global Food and Drink Initiative. If you haven't heard about it, where have you been? You need to know about this. So this is why you're here tonight. This is why you're going to watch the replay. This is why you're going to listen to the replay, because you're going to be better. Stealing from my good friend, Dr. Tachi, you're going to be more after you listen to this conversation tonight. And as always, we have a series of conversations behind the business, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we are so happy to have my mentor when it comes to food, my mentor when it comes to passion of food, wine, and travel in the diaspora, Sheree. How we doing, Sheree Williams?
I'm doing well, Dr. Vibe. How are you?
Good in your presence. Good in your presence. It's been a few weeks since we've been on live, and I'm sure there's some things we need to catch up on, because there's been a lot going on. And Sheree always is always forward thinking, always brings things to my attention about things like Top Chef and all the representation of color coming up on Top Chef. I'm beginning to see the ads now in Canada.
Oh, cool.
So it's
the US?
Yeah, well, it's premiering. They're running the same nights.
Wow.
Which is different, because when Top Chef first started, we'd always be a little bit behind, but we premiere here April 1st, and plus I have a box, so even if they delayed in Canada, I'm watching it. I'm going, Sheree was right. There's a little bit of a different look.
Oh, very cool.
In regards to participation and judges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really are up in the ante on the diversity there.
Yes, big time. So that's really good to see. But Sheree, just a little quick background on yourself, because some people may not know who you is and what you are, and how immensely grateful we are to have you.
Sounds good. So let's see. I've been publishing Cuisine Noir for it'll be 12 years this year.
Wow.
Focusing on food, drink, and travel, like you said, of the African diaspora, and really just starting those conversations, years ago, around where our narratives of where we are with food, our contributions, our successes. And so have really enjoyed that journey. And that's how you and I met. And then last year, launched the nonprofit Global Food and Drink Initiative to really bring all of those efforts around education and spotlights, and just really doing all of the work that we really want to do in this space, and just taking that to the next level. So here we are.
Absolutely. And we are taking it to the next level with your guidance and direction, and most importantly, your passion.
Thank you. It's been a long journey. Journey.
Well, you know what? It's been a long journey, but we will see the fruits of our labor.
Yes.
Someone
was reading a story today that someone wrote, and just really not focused so much on the destination, but the journey.
Yeah. So let's catch up. And hey, we've got a number of people watching live right now, and thank you so much. And if you have any comments or questions, please put them in your chat room of whatever platform you're watching on, because we have the ability not only to answer them verbally, but we can also respond to. I'll be watching the chat rooms and responding to them via chat. So Sheree, what are some things that have been going on over the last 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, so we've been really just trying to make the announcement to really focus on what we're doing in the expansion. Everyone knows us from Cuisine Noir, but now we're starting to get the nonprofit, the Global Food and Drink Initiative. So focused on that. We've actually started launching programming, which I'm very excited about. One of the reasons why we're here tonight. And so with that, launching our book series, which we'll go in a little bit more into. And then another event that we're doing will focus on April 6th, and you can see that on our website under the events page, is our event with Nelson, a German of Alamar here around Dominican cuisine. So very excited about that. So we'll really start to roll out programming that's geared toward community, that's geared toward letting chefs and other entrepreneurs show off their talents. And I'm very excited about that. So.
Yeah, and like it's so interesting. There's a lot happening, and I keep abreast as much as I can, especially about the world of outdoor events, because obviously, this is the 1 year anniversary of the pandemic being officially announced in North America,
Mhm.
and I'm very intentional with a lot of stuff I do. So I've been going into spaces of event planners,
Okay.
and all I'm hearing from event planners is outdoor events, because people have been cooped up so long. A lot of companies are gearing up for those outdoor events in the summer, and make sure that look for the companies that have gone through their pandemic training, all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
something tells me that this spring and summer, and I know some of the states in your country are opening up.
Yes,
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
exactly.
But it seems that things are going to start how can I say, making a turn for spring
Yes.
and summer, and it'll be interesting to see what the festivals are going to be like for the outdoors during the summer.
Well, they're really starting like South Beach Food and Wine was the last one that I went to in Miami last February before we came to the pandemic, and they've announced they're heading back to South Beach in May.
What?
And so, yeah,
Wow.
so they're definitely starting up again. And I was just reading something today that President Biden is looking to get back to some sense of normalcy, new normalcy, right? By July. And so, that was better first, before he took office, it was maybe December, the
Yep.
holidays. And so
Mhm.
now it's keep going up and up, which I'm sure everybody is excited about. But like they said, do not let down your guard.
Mhm.
And we still have to stay diligent.
Do you have any recent magazine highlights you'd like to share with our audience?
We've been, one of our favorite stories, there's so many favorite stories, but we featured Chef Orlando Satchel, who's in St. Lucia. And, just an amazing chef from London originally, he's traveled, he's been around, Dubai and other places before he landed in um, St. Lucia, and just his story of being a chef and what chefs go through. And then now he's like one of the top rated, from, food and travel and leisure, top 50 restaurants in the world, and just
Wow.
hospitality, etc. So his story, I think, is very important. And then the other story was a young chef that we featured from South Africa. And one of the quotes that he shared that really stuck out in my mind was he was sharing how he was in a competition and there was an Italian chef who won because he did an Italian dish, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so he said, when he looked down on his plate, he's like, where am I? Because he was trying to do other people's cuisine because that's what he thought would win. And
Yeah.
so when he finally stepped into who he was, what he had been taught, he won. So those are just some really, great and inspiring stories that we've had. We have another young lady who's originally from Ivory Coast, family settled in Paris. And so she, by the way of business, landed in Denver. And one of the ways she shifted through the pandemic was launching her granola brand that she first made for herself. And now she makes for others. And they are fantastic. Um, so just how, we're persevering through
Yep.
this and we're creating. And that's
Yes.
what's important. We're creating.
Well, as I think it's a nice segue into creating some programming.
And your story.
Yeah. Well, we have I'm going to let you, obviously, because we've worked on this together about some of the programming that the Global Food and Drink Initiative have been working on. We have our first event. It's like 3 in 1, but we have our
Yes.
first coming up. So why don't you give a little background on it, and then we'll bring up our special guest for this evening.
Sounds good. So, obviously doing publishing, we see a lot of cookbooks, we see a lot of books, we see a lot of things that people do right, see a lot of things that people do wrong. Um, and one of the things is people do want to tell their story. we know a lot of people want to get that book deal, have that publisher house call and give them that big advance and this and that, but that doesn't always happen. So people have said, you know what, I want to tell my story. I'll do it myself. I'll market it myself. I'll publish, I'll sell, etc. And so, as we've been hearing over the years, as we have been seeing over the years, I thought that this would be a great way to start our series off for 2021, the ABCs of publishing, and just walking people through some steps on and what that looks like to get your book published. And then from this 3-part series, we're going to branch off into food and food photography that you need for your cookbooks. If you're doing a cookbook, here's how to do a cookbook. We'll talk about travel. We'll talk about beverages. And then we're also going to talk about one on ghostwriting. So I'm very excited about that because for our writers out there who a lot of, chefs and things, especially the high profile chefs, they're not actually writing their books. They have someone that's doing it for them and making sure they capture their voice. So we're going to talk about how do you get into doing that. So yes, we're very excited.
Mm-hmm. And who's the person we're going to have helping us with this? Talk to me about him.
So Glenn Murray, I met Glenn, oh goodness, time goes by. It's probably been about 5 years or so. And we just, hit it off. Really a great man, great entrepreneur, great businessman, great entrepreneur, passionate about his businesses, really doing a lot of great things. We met because he has a company called Wine Crawl. And just started that, taking people on trips, curating those. And, we would, before the pandemic, would do our ATL happy hours together where we invite readers out, people out. We have a winemaker do wine drinking, host an event. So we haven't been able to do that in the last year or so. But over the years, just started to really look at what each other does, support each other. And so I knew he was publishing. And so as I was looking at programs that we wanted to do, I knew I had the perfect partner to go into helping our readers talk about how to publish a book.
Well, let's welcome the man who is the perfect partner, Mr. Glenn Murray. How are you?
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction. I had to look around to see who you were talking about for a minute. Great man. I was like, oh gosh, I'm not on this show. Okay. Actually, I'm very happy to be on a show about food and drink. I thought you guys were having me on to talk about my world famous nacho recipe, but I guess you want to talk about publishing. Oh well. Or my homemade hot tamale recipe, which is actually my mother's. But
really,
is there a plate in the background?
No, sorry, no. I didn't have my setup. I don't have my apron and my ingredients around, so I can't do a demo tonight for that. So I guess we'll talk about publishing.
Why not?
Why not? But I want to talk about how did you get into food? Because it sounds like you had a little bit of a time in the food world before you took it to the publishing world.
But not really a time in food. I just can't. I was born and raised in the South, so where cooking is an art form, and you have to know how to cook from scratch. So my mother was an amazing cook. So she had a dish for everybody. If you come over our house and you had a favorite dish, she would learn it and make it for you. So every time you would come, she'd have your dish waiting on you. So there are people that still talk about my mother's monkey bread, homemade hot tamales, homemade lasagna. I mean, I could go on and on about the stuff she would make. The monkey bread was like a delicacy.
Hold on, what's monkey bread?
Now it takes me back to the show Beauty Shop. It's a real thing, huh?
It's a real thing. Yeah, monkey bread is great.
What is?
It's like a giant. Imagine a giant cinnamon roll. That's the best way to describe monkey bread.
Wow.
It's made in a bundt cake. It's caramelized. You can add pecans to it or any kind of nuts. I mean, it's like quite amazing. And you just pull it out and it just pulls apart, and it's just.
Oh, it sounds good, and I'm hungry.
I mean, you probably gain like 3 pounds sniffing it, just smelling it, gain weight. So full of sugar and everything else that's bad for you these days. But
and then not to measure your glucose level.
Yeah. So
sounds good though.
But that was a popular dish, yeah. So
what do you today carry on from what your mother instilled in you?
Wow, that's a good question. A few things. I would say treatment of others and making sure that I am treating others the way I'd want to be treated, and just making sure that I'm pushing people and doing right by people and helping them to achieve their goals in any way, shape, or form. So really serving people. I think that was her legacy.
Nice.
And I really try to carry that on. It's so funny you mentioned that, because in Clubhouse last night, they were talking about that, and they were talking about, what's your superpower, or what do you think your superpower is? And or if you were an artist, what's your art? And I said my art was every day I start with a blank canvas, because I have a chance to create a masterpiece every day.
Nice.
And that masterpiece could be something I create or something I help people create.
Nice.
So that's how I see every day. Every day you get a chance to create a masterpiece. Every day that you're here, you need to take advantage of that. And that's how I see it, and that's how I approach every day, every waking moment.
Nice. Sheree, any questions? Because I can roll.
No, I understand. Glenn, talk a little bit before we get into, and because we're not going to give it all away, right? We're going to talk about more of, again, behind the business. We're not going to talk about what we're going to be talking about, because everyone has to join us on March 20th. But before we do that, talk a little bit about Wine Crawl.
Oh, about Wine Crawl. Yes, as you were saying, Wine Crawl has been going on, I think, thanks to Cuisine Noir. My first article was in Cuisine Noir Magazine almost 5 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, so Wine Crawl is 7 years old. We took a little bit of a hiatus last year, of course, because of COVID. But it started out, I went to Napa, 8 years ago, 9 years ago now, and I saw the limo tours that they were doing around the valley. And I thought, wow, I'm in Chicago. There's so many great restaurants and wine bars in the area. I should really try this idea. And I had been dabbling in wine a little bit. I dated somebody who had kind of gotten me into wine. Like, every good idea starts with a woman, I always say. Usually, just give women credit. It's International Women's Month.
Well done.
Didn't plan that. It wasn't positioned that way. It's actually very true.
Well done.
As I talk about things, you'll see some of the best ideas I got from women.
Okay.
And I give them credit for it. So that had gotten me into wine, and I was doing events around wine, some charity things. But then I saw that, and I'm like, okay, Wine Crawl. So if you think about a beer crawl, it's traditional and everything. So Wine Crawl is kind of an upscale version of the beer crawl. So we rented a luxury bus, and we went around to 3 restaurants and did tastings and pairings, and we sold it out the first couple of times we did it. So being the marketer that I am, I'm like, that was just a test. We got lucky. I got to prove this concept out. So I kept doing it, and it kept being successful. So 3 or 4 years later, it just really took off. So we actually, a couple of the events in Chicago, we sold them out so fast. We sold them out like 6 months ahead of time. We had over 1 million hits to the event page, without buying any advertising. I think Facebook changed their algorithms on me right after that. They were like, he just got 1 million people to that page, and he didn't buy an ad. We got.
What did you do, Glenn?
Huh?
What did you do to get that traffic?
We really just put it out there, and I really started to target a whole different audience. So I looked at Chicago, and Facebook has great tools where you can slice and dice your audience. And my background is direct marketing, so very adept at segmentation. So I really looked at areas and pockets that surrounded wine bars and wineries, looked at people with like interest. And I actually targeted a lot of foodies as well, because foodies also are wine people. If you think about it, that appreciation for food carries over into wine too. So it was just a convergence of all of that, and it came together, and people loved it and sold us out that whole year.
Wow.
So that was one of our best years. It was like 2016, 2017. So then I was like, let me take this show on the road. So one of the first places I went, I did a test run in Indianapolis, and then I went to Atlanta when I moved there in 2016, and started to host them there, and it really went well there. I skipped over to Dallas because I was looking for places that were like Chicago. So I was looking for demographics that were similar to Chicago. Dallas is very similar. So I went there, and we had a successful run there too. We had about 2 or 3 wine crawls there. So coming back to Chicago around 2018, another woman, my partner in G Rose Productions, Keisha Rose, like, you should really franchise this. Because I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I was going to give up. I was kind of giving everything up. I just wanted to kind of rest for a while, because I had done Wine Crawl, publishing, and all this other stuff. So she was like, no, you should franchise it. I'm like, I don't really feel like franchising it. And then a couple of people called me from Atlanta wanting to look at hosting wine crawls. Then there was a group in Dallas that I talked to, and they signed up as well. In Birmingham, Tish Billingsley, I think you know Tish, who does Finale in Birmingham. So she became a franchisee as well. I have franchisee in Chicago too.
Nice.
And then Bonita Johnson, who we both know,
Mhm.
became a franchisee in the Carolinas. So now
Wow.
we have that group of people. So we were ready and gung ho. 2020 was going to be our year, and bam,
Mhm.
everything
Wow.
shut down. So we're excited though. We're excited because we think the latter half of 2021 we'll be able to get back out there and do some things.
Mhm.
We did a few virtual crawls, but it's just really, it's been fun. And I met so many wonderful people. There's so many wonderful people in the wine industry that you never knew about, and
Right.
just going out and meeting those people and learning about what they do. We've been
Mhm.
able to introduce a lot of new winemakers. Stuyvesant Wine was one. We
Mhm.
introduced them last year on a virtual crawl. So
Okay.
Marvina Robinson's doing amazing right now. Love Corkscrew has been featured on wine
Mhm.
crawls many years ago when they launched. Quite a few others. So it's been fun to do as well. It's just a fun business. That's my
Awesome.
fun business.
Okay, hold
That
on.
doesn't feel like work.
I got a question here.
hmm
So when you did your first event, take me back or take our audience back to your first event. Were you confident that you obviously you had a million people like going at
Well,
it?
that wasn't the first one. The million
Okay.
people didn't come until about a year or two later, but we sold out the first event. So that was a pretty good sign there.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I just, how was that first event? Like, you realize you're in rare air, no matter what industry, that your first event was popping.
Was popping, yeah.
Yeah.
It was so successful. We had like 42 seats on the bus, and I didn't calculate. Here I am, an event planner, or calling myself an event planner. I didn't count a seat for myself. So I had a person helping me. I'll never forget it. Samantha Dockery, who's now she's a co-owner of the Chicago franchise, and she was helping me. She was an event planner, and she we became friends, and she's like, "Hey, I'll help you with this." So I was like, I sold my seat on the bus. So I was trailing it in my car. So I didn't really get to enjoy it that much. That's a true story. I never told anybody that story. But yeah, I didn't even get to ride the bus. I literally had to go to each destination in my car, just catch up with people, then show up there and be like, hey, work the crowd.
Wow.
But it felt good. It did feel good because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know you don't know what you don't know. And events are so hit or miss sometimes. You can have the best laid plans and have everything look perfect and go through it in your mind, and it still fail. Tremendously fail. Like I've had some failures that are classic. I had an event in Chicago one time, downtown, and I was actually working with my parents in their art business. So we were doing an art show, and this was huge. I put my little money in, and I was all ready. We had people going to come, and it was at a high rise in downtown Chicago, right on Michigan Avenue. Literally 30 minutes before the show started, there was a blackout in the loop for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
So nobody could get up to the floor to come to the show for about the length of the show. Luckily there were no open windows that I could jump out of. That's what I felt like doing.
Wow.
But in Chicago, they won't let you do that. I guess people do that a lot here.
No.
So the windows are bolted down. And that was probably good because that happened. And I'm like, I am never doing this again.
Wow.
Things like that. Yeah. So I officially retired from doing events probably around the time I started franchising wine crawls. So I've got a lot of talented people that know how to do it, that love wine and love doing this. So I can kind of sit back, help market it, and show up and be a spectator. It actually feels good to actually go to one of your wine crawls and not have to work it. You actually get to drink.
Wow.
Not after instead of during instead of after. Usually I'll do it after, but yeah.
Wow. Well, I know we're here to talk about the publishing, but this is so interesting. But we're also here to talk about the business. So, Glenn, take us back to, have you always been an entrepreneur? Did you start? Did you leave corporate? And then, so tell us about that.
I was an employedpreneur because I liked that base, and I liked being able to finance my businesses, and I liked eating a lot too. So I do. So
no struggling entrepreneur, huh?
Yeah,
I don't crying about when the rent's going to be paid and all that.
Because I believe if you're passionate about something, whether you work on it at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. at night, your passion is going to come through and you're going to be successful with it.
Right.
So you do all you can to make it successful. If that means you have to work a 9 to 5 to help fund that passion, then you do that. So I'm not, you know, and I hear a lot of people, you know, say, no, you got to throw your all into it, you know. Yeah, but that's, throwing your all into it is, everybody's interpretation of that is a little bit different. I throw my all into everything I do. Nobody will ever say, what are the things you'll never hear people say about Glenn? God, I wish he'd work a little harder on this stuff.
Right,
you know?
right. And I've had people shame other people because they aren't what they consider an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had people talk about that too. And I kind of laugh at them because, you know, while you're struggling to pay bills, you're bragging about being an entrepreneur, but you can't handle your own business.
Right.
So think about it that way. If you're not managing your own business, how am I going to trust you to manage another business that you start? So you have to think about it that way too, because everything look at your life as a business. How do you manage your life?
Right.
How do you balance your time? How do you focus? Where do you focus? You know, how do you make things work?
So how did you make things work?
I still work, but actually now it's great because now I have a team of people that are doing some really wonderful things for me. In publishing, I have a director of publishing, and then we have a couple of project managers. I have a graphic designer. I still get involved a lot with the social media part of it, but I don't touch the book part of it. I don't want anybody that really wants their book done. Don't talk to me about it. You talk to Stephanie Reynolds and that team, because they actually know what they're doing. So just bringing people in that had a passion for it, that were interested in it, either part-time or full-time, but just really figuring out how to make it work. So 60 books later, we've really reimagined the business in the last couple of years to be able to help both authors who want to self-publish as well as publishing under our own imprint. So we've been able to do that too. So that's how we grew that. With Wine Crawl, I had to scale it. I couldn't be everywhere every weekend. I tried though for 2 years. I think I was Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, Dallas, back and forth everywhere. But I'm like, I can't do that and really make it successful. So I had to scale that. So I found people that were interested in the business, and I still definitely were able to lend our help with that, and connect them to people in the industry, to people that I met throughout the years. So that's gone good. So that's how we learned to scale that.
So are you still doing the art business?
No, I left the art alone. Art is hard. Artists, bless their heart, but I think I'd rather adopt a 16-year-old and actually manage an artist. I would. I'd rather just go through that. I'd rather take a 16-year-old going through puberty and change and everything else than to deal with an artist, because artists, God bless them, but they just don't get it sometimes when it comes to business. I love them. I love talented people, but just deal with an artist every now and then. You'll understand if you've ever dealt with an artist.
We'll have to trade stories sometime offline. For V3, what's more challenging, dealing with a chef, or you, Glenn, dealing with an artist?
Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, we probably have to swap stories because.
I mean, and that's visual artists.
Sheree, and they're not going to make it on this platform. Let's I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
We could do behind the business.
Yeah.
I talked about that because that could be interesting.
Yeah, that's where all the gossip and the good stuff is.
Yes, and we dabbled in music, and I can't really talk about our artists. We actually helped produce a CD by our local artist here in Chicago, Nina Ray, extremely talented. Before that, we were doing shows with artists, with music artists, and working with some of them was interesting too. Those are stories that, oh my God. Yeah. Again, I would adopt a 16-year-old.
So let me ask, what was the idea behind 220 Publishing?
So 220 Publishing, how did it start? I have to think back. So I was doing marketing. So I was kind of at a marketing business. So it really started out as an events and marketing business where I was doing different events around the arts. So one of my good friends, Yanni Brown, and I were sitting around talking.
I know that name.
Yeah, Making Love Better Together.
I know her. I interviewed her a number of years ago.
Did you? Oh, okay.
Go on. Yeah, okay, go on.
So Yanni is a relationship educator. So, she counsels married couples. So she was trying to find a way to really promote what she was doing with her relationship business. So I don't know. We were just in conversation. I'm like, you should write a book. That's one way to get to people that you won't get to see at your counseling sessions or at your events around Chicago. So it really expands your brand. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And then I was hosting events with authors, and I was working with authors, and I was noticing something that they were doing. There was a lot of omission in kind of what they were doing with their books. There was one author who had an incorrect historical reference, and then there was one author who actually published something about a public figure that was actually slander. She got it wrong, and I'm like, you could get sued for this slander, because it was accusing a public figure, a very public figure, of a crime that they didn't commit.
Oh, wow.
Because she had just gotten she had read the tabloids or something, and she got it all wrong. And I was trying to tell her about it. She's like, "Oh yeah, it's okay." And I'm like, "No, it's really not okay." And I don't want to work with you anymore either, by the way. So I was like, I needed to own the whole process. I needed to make sure from soup to nuts that we were looking at it and really looking at it like an assembly line and really owning that process. So I went to Yanni and said, "Hey, I know we talked about writing your book. I would love to publish your first book. I don't know anything about publishing." She's like, "All right, we'll do it." So she agreed to do it. And that's where 220 Publishing started. So that was 11 years ago.
Where's 220?
Where?
Yeah, what is 220?
Oh, what is it? It's there's a story behind that too, but it's second to none. That's what we call it. So 220, second to none. I had a friend with a license plate that said 220 on it, and I asked her what it meant. She's like, "That's code for second to none." So I was like, I really like that. So when I named the business, she saw it. She's like, "Okay, that's fine. When you make it big, just buy me a house. That'll be the price."
Wow.
So yeah, but that's where we got the 220.
Okay.
It just kind of stuck.
Wonderful. What has been the most challenging? What's been the most challenging moment in the you're not going to give it to. I can already see by your smile. So I'm not going to ask that question.
There are no challenging moments. I love everybody that ever published Dr. Vibe. What do you mean challenges? It's been every day has been roses and sunshine. I can't imagine.
No thorns, just roses, right?
Just roses. Well, when you grab the top of the rose and miss the bush, the thorn part, but no. Challenges. Challenges.
Okay, well, you know what? Let me ask you a different question then. Maybe easier one. How is it different now than when you started?
Oh gosh, I know so much more and I've learned so much more about it. At first, when we got out there, we just wanted to put books out because it looked cool to publish 10 books a year under the 220 brand. But then you have to really think about it from a business end of it and how profitable are these books and things like that. So now I can go down and tell you from book 1 through 40 where my most profitable book was and which books lost money.
Wow.
What surprised me were the books that I thought would be successful weren't as successful.
Right.
And the books that I didn't think have a chance actually were really good. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Well, why'd you print them, Glenn, if you didn't think they had a chance?
Well, I don't want to say.
Now, Glenn, you see, I ain't going there. You have usually got 5 years in it. I ain't going there. I was thinking about it.
Okay, so you can't call any you can't call any of your children ugly. So it wasn't that I didn't think they had a chance, but I didn't think that they would be as successful as other books based on style of writing, based off the theme, things like that. But a lot of the success really depends on the author and where they are and where their head is when they're publishing. And I've had a lot of authors come back to me and was like, I had a good friend of mine that I didn't publish. She wanted to publish a book and she was like, yeah, I was like, okay, we can publish it. What's your audience? Some of the same questions I ask. And as I got what I've learned, what's different now is I ask the right questions and I look at things from a different perspective now. Before it was cool to publish the book and have the books out and have that on my roster and have the 220 name on it. Now it's, what do the books mean? What's the purpose for the book? What's the audience for the book? And where do I think this book can go? What part of the brand for this author? How does this help? Is this a tool in the toolkit, or is this just them wanting to pat themselves on the back and say, hey, I wrote a book, look at me. I sold 5 copies, but look at me, I wrote a book. So I'm not interested in people that just want to say they wrote a book. I'm interested in people that actually want to do something with that book, either change lives, either make it part of a brand, part of a bigger brand, but to have some sort of direction, some focus, some vision about the book. And that's hard. And it's hard telling people. And you get some people who want to publish because they want to tell their story. But you have to ask, are you writing? And especially there's some stories that are very sensitive. So are you writing from a position of power, or are you writing from your pain? If you're writing from your pain, then you're writing for revenge. You're not writing for revelation. I always talk about that. Write for revelation, not for revenge. When you're telling your story, if it's a story of abuse, if it's a story of a hard life or of a traumatic incident, you need to write from a position of power, because that's where the story resonates with people, and that's where people will understand it better. And where it really will touch people. So I've learned to decipher.
I'm gonna stop because you're dropping too many nuggets. We need people. We got people that
we got to sell this. I'm sorry. We got to sell this.
You're dropping knowledge, and I don't want my executive director to get all over me with so
she's mean. I know she's really mean. I heard. Yeah.
So Sheree, give us some of the background behind this first event that GFDI is going to be doing. I'm going to actually, for those who are watching on the screen, I'm actually, during this part of the conversation, I'm going to have the actual event page up so you can see what it looks like. And I also will have the link on the screen for people to register. If you're not watching it live or not watching the replay, we'll give the information out verbally. So Sheree, back to you.
Gotcha. So we've got the 3-part series. So we've got March 20th, April 24th, and May 22nd. So the first one that we're doing, which is next week, I can't believe not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, is around creating your story, which Glenn was sort of dropping some nuggets around. And so it's really going to be talking about what is that story and how to curate that story. And so that is what we're going to be talking about. And then some people don't know where to start, right? And just, and what that process looks like. Is it writing it down? Is it putting it in a video recorder? What does that look like? And so that's really what we're going to be talking about. Glenn, can you share a little bit more about who our guest is going to be?
Yeah, I'm actually bringing along one of my authors. Justin Ryan is his pen name, but Justin's been working with me for a number of years, and we actually will be launching his book 4 days after the event.
Wow.
So this is perfect. So Justin not only is an author, but he also works with other authors on writing their story, helping them form their story. So he's an author, he's a screenwriter. We've co-written some screenplays together, along with myself and Keisha Rose. So just really talented young man. So he's actually, like I said, he's debuting his book in a few days after that. So I'm bringing him along to really talk about how to format your story and how to really structure it. So he's going to be doing more of the talking than I am, but he's going to, I think that's going to be really helpful for people, because a lot of people don't know where to start.
Right.
I get that a lot. Like people come to me, and I'm like, I'm the publisher, so I kind of need you to have a finished product, or at least a Word document done. I don't need you to come to me with a blank piece of paper and ask me, how do I start?
Right.
So having him on the team has really helped us to be able to service people wherever they are in the process. So I think that'll be very helpful on this first one. The second one we'll talk more about after your story is done, kind of how you present it to a publisher. What do we like to see? How do you put together that package to present to a publisher? And then the third one is, you wrote it, now go sell it. So that's the title of a book I wrote about marketing your books. So we'll talk about that and kind of what are some strategies you can do, both free and paid strategies. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, because we know money is tight for some people.
Right.
And, there are a lot of free things you can do. There's a lot you can take advantage of. You just have to put in the work.
Absolutely.
And that's the one big difference too. You asked me about differences between then and now, is I can have those tough conversations with authors that we publish about putting in the work and doing the things they need to do, because I've seen books that are wildly successful because of the work the author put into it. People come to me and it's like, well, how many books are you going to help me sell? I'm like, none. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm the publisher. So I am putting your book out. I am not your publicist. There's a difference between publisher and publicist. So your publisher gives you the avenue. Your publisher builds the highway that gets your, helps your book get out there and puts the distribution channels in place. There is some marketing that they do, definitely, that we do and help promote it. But your success is going to depend on how much work you do as well. You've got to pour into that book just like you pour into anything else. It's a business, and you got to look at your book as a business. That's a whole nother webinar we could have. Your book is a business.
Stop it, Glenn.
So I'm not giving it away, I promise. I'm not.
And I have
a
question, Glenn.
So let me ask, you've been at this a while. Are you seeing an increase of more authors or potential authors knocking at your door?
Yes, for a lot of reasons. I think COVID kind of brought people to the realization that they needed to do something with that story they've been wanting to tell. And I think that pushed some people. And tragedy pushes us to a different plane sometimes. And I think that's happened to some people. They've lost people, or they've lost time, or they see that tomorrow's not promised. So whatever you want to do creatively, you need to do it. So I think that has pushed some people. So I've seen that. Clubhouse has helped us a lot. Honestly. Yeah, honestly, I've gone on Clubhouse. I've moderated some panels, some rooms. And I've seen people come to me with just, and I get those people that are like, I just don't know where to start. So, Justin, I know, is ghostwriting for a few people now and counseling a few people and consulting on that as well. And we get people who are maybe through the process where they have the book done, but they don't know how to get it out. So we help them with distribution. We distribute internationally. So, helping people there. So I've seen a lot from that. And then just word of mouth, which is good. That means we've done good work and people are recommending us. So I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the team that works on this. Stephanie Reynolds, Janie Lee's our designer. We have 2 project managers, Marcia McCall, who you know Marcia, and Tiana Williams, who work on the projects for us. So they've just done a great job. We're excited. I'm sorry.
So question for you, going back to the third webinar. So, when with the magazine, we work with a lot of publicists that are promoting books. Do you have a publicist on staff?
We don't. We actually are farming that service out through our marketing division, which is kind of a third business I started during COVID. Like I needed another business and sit still. But people were coming to me for marketing, and I just didn't have time to do it. But I had a good friend who I knew had like 20 some years in the business. So as my friends say, I like strong arm them and bully them into being in business and writing books. I don't know why they say that. I'm the nicest person I know. Just ask me. I never bully people. I just show them things that they can do better. That's all. And then I give it to them, and then I just throw them out there. But it worked. So we have a marketing division now. So we actually are working on farming out PR. We have digital advertising. We do billboard advertising. We actually did a deal with a company in the UK where we provide digital billboard advertising. I'm actually working with Clear Channel now as well on some advertising as well. So we've talked to them. So yeah, just different ways to get your book out there. So we're looking at PR companies. We're going to contract with a couple of different PR companies to do publicist work for some of our releases as well.
So I have a question. Well, because you've opened up this marketing and division, do you also serve book writers that already have stuff out and would like to? Good. Okay.
Yes, and non-book business too. We don't just do books. We actually have a cartoon that we are helping push by Murtis Randolph called Yo-Yo Don't Play That. Great cartoon. It's a spiritually based cartoon about bullying and teaching you lessons about that. So she just debuted back in December, and we helped with the launch of that as well.
People who are watching live, please ask your questions, because next time you see Glenn, you're going to have to pay. So, and there's only a few minutes left. So if don't come crying to me or Vishu saying, "Oh, I want to ask a question," you have to pay. You know what
I feel like this is church. If you just reach into your pocket,
didn't you know it's a church?
And give us a love offering, and we just need a love offering. That's all we need.
It's a church of Cuisine Noir. Didn't you know that? Did you know that? The church of Cuisine.
Too funny.
The church of GFDI. Yes.
Hey, don't be
the GFDI Tabernacle.
Lord, oh, great. That's what people's gonna think of us now. Stop.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're just joking. Anybody that's offended that goes to church.
Gotta have fun. So, Glenn, let me ask, and it may be hard, but let me ask the percentage of people that are coming to you that are looking for help. Are you seeing certain categories that they're writing on more than others?
I'm seeing a lot of children's books lately.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Representation,
children's
right?
books. Yeah, we've had a couple of really popular through our private label service. We published 2 children's books, and one of them made top 10 in its category in bestsellers in Amazon. So that's been good. We've been on a good roll for the whole top 10 thing. The last 2 books we published made it to top 10. The last one, We Dream by Jay Allison. We Dream, Understanding God's Voice in the Night, went to number 1 in its category.
Nice.
Our first number 1 in the category. So very proud of that. Faith, Failure, Success, which was a business anthology that I was a part of, along with 5 other authors, that went to number 6 in its category as well. So,
wow, congratulations.
So I told Justin if he didn't go to the top 10, he was fired. So no pressure to him. But I'm expecting it to be number 1 now.
So what do you feel is the reason for the increased popularity of the children's books? But writers wanting to. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's people staying at home with their kids during COVID. They feel like they needed to write about it. I don't know why, but yeah, we have a lot of people coming to us about children's books. And there's still people that come to us with their autobiographies and wanting to tell their stories as well.
But you definitely see a representation, would you say? Because especially from Black authors, Black moms, Black dads that are not writing books to speak to children the way, young boys, young girls with hair, different things like that. I know I've seen that so much over the years. Definitely.
And we're seeing more spiritually based writing as well from people. There's a whole Clubhouse room that I get to co-moderate on Christian authors and for beginning writers.
In that room,
on Sundays.
Yes.
Yeah, so and it's interesting. I have to joke because I go from doing the man cave on Saturday nights to being in the Christian author room on Sundays, and a little bit I have to deal with that. Hopefully nobody watches the show and makes the comparison of what I do that Saturday night versus Sunday. But I try to, I shift pretty well. I compare it to going to church after going to the club. You get up and you go. You do what you have to do.
Lord. So, Glenn, how do you balance it all? I know you have a good team.
Yes, that helps. I stay sane because I enjoy people and I enjoy working with people and seeing them grow. So that is part of, I kind of think it's part of my assignment now. So I don't look at it as a burden anymore. I don't look at it as a job sometimes. I mean, I've helped a lot of people become first-time authors. So people have really been able to live their dreams because of something I wanted to do that I didn't know that I was going to do. I mean, 3 years ago, guys, to be quite honest, 3 years ago, I was going to let it all go. I was tired. I was probably going to focus on Wine Crawl. I think I wanted to keep Wine Crawl for many reasons. It was a lot more fun at the time, and I was ready to let publishing go completely.
Wow.
What changed your mind? What made you stay in the game?
That's behind the business.
Some really good people supporting me, telling me that I needed to keep going. And at that point, I wrote my book, the You Wrote It Now, Go Sell It book, which did really well. And then I had an idea for Faith, Failure, Success that I really wanted to see come to fruition. And it didn't come to fruition until the end of last year. But it became our first top 10 bestseller. So had I stopped then, never would have gotten to that point. I never would have written my own book. I never would have been a contributor in this book. There's another book coming out called Lessons for the Little Boy, where I write a letter to my younger self.
Nice.
So I'm able to talk about loss. I'm able to talk about the loss of my mom to cancer. I'm able to talk about just reconciling growing up, and just kind of feeling that awkward stage I felt at the time. I'm talking to myself then to say, okay, you need to hold on because here are the things that are coming.
Right.
And to me, I was able to really pour out a part of myself that people don't necessarily see or that I don't necessarily share. Wouldn't have been able to do that had I not kept publishing.
Wow.
So now I see it. You don't see it back then that this is what's going to happen. And since then, we've been able to publish so many books by people who, like I said, first-time authors who've been able to tell their story, who've been able to share their story with the world. So it feels good to do that. Would I have liked to have had all bestsellers? Absolutely.
Right.
But if one person bought it and it changes their life, it's worth it.
Right. Let me ask you this, because this is going back to a conversation I had with someone. And, we all have those days where it's like, you know what, I can just go on back over here, see if they're hiring or whatever. You know what I mean? Because there are those days. There's days when it's great, and then there's days where you're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
you know,
there's days when it sucks. Yeah.
But I don't. So the person I was having this conversation with, you know, felt that everybody being an entrepreneur doesn't have those type of thoughts or those type of days.
Everybody has a bad day. Like if you live long enough, you'll have a bad day. And all you need to live is 1 or 2 days. That's all you need. You'll have a bad day. You'll have a bad day every week. Every week, you know, like I said, nothing is roses, but yeah.
I would love to know. I'm sure there could be entrepreneurs out there that are like, I've never thought about that, but I bet you a lot more.
Yeah, see, we live in a social media world where everybody's on vacation all during the week. So while you're sitting here slaving over your computer, somebody's on the beach taking selfies. And I think that's what people see on the glamour of entrepreneurialism as, because people always talked about how wine crawl, oh, you're everywhere in wine crawl, but you don't see like the 3 or 4 months it took to get that done, to negotiate on the business, to say, okay, I'm short ticket sales, so now I may not break even. What's going on there? Or you don't look at putting a book together, it doesn't sell, and the author's calling you, cursing you out because the book didn't sell. Well, they kind of didn't do anything to help it either. So you get that, you know, so there's good, bad, and the ugly. You know, there's contracts and negotiating contracts, and then having to terminate contracts from people. So because things just didn't work out and business relationships didn't work out. So it is far from glamorous all the time. You know, you see the glory, you don't know the story.
Amen.
I know, I hate to sound like a preacher. I come from a long line of preachers, so every now and then I might just dip into a rhyme or something.
Okay.
I can't help it.
Oh my god!
That's why we should just take the collection. I'm like, I know how to do it. I actually know how to do that, you know? Like, I swear, coming to America, the Arsenio Hall preacher was my great-grandfather. He would do that. He would get up and go, I didn't mean to preach. And then he'd tell a sermon. He'd have a whole sermon. So I know how to do it.
That's good stuff. Oh my goodness. Wow. Anything else we got for this young man, Sheree?
No, this is just amazing. Looking forward to this series. Like I said, we're going to look at talk about after the ABCs, go into, you've got a cookbook idea, what that looks like, and some more. So, you know, we're excited to kick off our programming with you, Glenn.
Hey, kudos to you guys for launching this. I think this is great. I think it's relevant. So many people are so interested in it. I've heard so many people kind of just come and ask me, what is it? And send them to the website. I'll send them to the Facebook page and everything. But, you know, I hope everybody that's interested, please support. I love, you know, it's a great way to discover yourself as well. Writing is an amazing way to really discover who you are.
Really healing.
It's great for healing. It totally helped me heal through a really tough time. So, and I've always been an avid reader. I've been a reader since I was a kid. So I've loved books, and I think that's part of it too. So there is that underlying passion there for it. But like I said, I love watching people realize their goals, their ambitions, their dreams through writing. It's become a ministry for some. It's become healing for others.
Before we let you go, let me ask, do you remember the moment that you held the first book that you published?
Ooh.
Yeah, I do actually. I do remember that. It was a great feeling. Holding the first book I published, holding the first book that I actually contributed to was pretty interesting too. You know, I laugh about it because we had a book signing, and I always used to joke in elementary school that people would want my autograph one day. So I actually signed my first book, and I was smiling about it.
Shut up, Glenn. Seriously, Christy, junior year AP English. I told her you may want to hold on to this autograph.
See? Yeah, I remember that's what people back in like 3rd or 4th grade. I'd sign a piece of paper and hand it to the girl, like, here's my autograph. And
okay, sure did.
She threw it at me. She probably would still throw it at me now, knowing her. But you know, still, it's my autograph now. Somebody wants it, damn it.
Oh my God. Well, folks, it's Glenn Murray. If you're watching this live on the replay, we're putting up all his contact information on the screen. He's on Facebook. Just look under 220 Holdings on Facebook. Also on Instagram or Twitter, 220 Holdings, I believe.
Yeah, or no, Glenn at Glenn220 on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, you can get in touch with me. I'm not going to tell you anything about the 20th though, because you got to buy that. But I will say hi to you and send you the link to buy it. So don't try it. Don't try to get in and be like, oh, I just need a little. No,
don't
you cannot pick my brain
just
between now and the 20th. There will be no picking of my brain. Okay, none. So don't even try it.
So it's at Glenn, and it's 2 N's for people who are listening. If you're not watching, it's 2 N's, not
it's
1
spelled
N.
right. Yeah, all the 1 N Glens are. Yeah, no. 2 N's.
Right. And the event, again, we have it up on the screen here if you're watching or watching it live on the replay, globalforfood.org/events. Every person has a story. The question is, are you going to share it with the world?
Amen. Look, we're going to church.
There you go. Yeah, no, look at it. Dr. Vibe. Uh-huh.
No,
we're going to get an A and B selection. We're going to have an A and B from Dr. Vibe very soon.
Okay.
And again, the one we're highlighting, March 20th, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. The virtual ABCs of publishing, part 1, creating your story. We are expecting you to be there. If you don't go, you don't grow. Leave it at that. Sheree, any final things you want to share with our audience?
No, we're looking forward to having everyone, and I think it'll be a worthwhile time to get to stop on by on the 20th. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. It is Dr. Vibe here. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I'm the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, and we are definitely looking forward to this event. Again, there's a website address for the Global Food and Drink Initiative. If you're not watching, you just want to know it's globalforgood.org. So as always, I like to close off my conversations with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Remember to give yourself grace and love, faith, and respect. Big thanks to Glenn for showing up, and always a huge thanks to Sheree, who works tirelessly to make it better for Blacks in diaspora in food, wine, and travel. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith, and goodbye, everybody.